Yeah, hello guys, welcome to Blurred Summits. This is our very first podcast, a bit of an introduction. We're hoping to tell you guys what we're all about, what we plan to do with this podcast. So, my name is Abdul. I am one of the hosts, one of the co hosts of this podcast. Um, I am a 20-year-old, still a university student, and what I'm really hoping to do with this podcast is really share our journey um, so that we can kind of keep track of our progress, keep a sense of accountability with what we're trying to do, who we're trying to be as people, and share that with the world, and then maybe get some feedback on what we're doing and share those experiences. So I have with me Hudson.
Hello, yeah, I'm Hudson. So again, 20-year-old university student. Yeah, with this, we're just hoping to do something where we can follow down our path of personal growth, keep ourselves accountable with what we're gonna do, what we plan to do. So then maybe down the line, we have something to look back on to see how we progressed, if we followed what we were gonna say, and maybe motivate some other people to do the same as us, set goals, set challenges for themselves, and push themselves to their boundaries.
Sitting in with us for a couple of episodes here.
Yeah, guys. Hey, I'm also 20. I'm aspiring to be a paramedic. Right now, I'm in training, and I'm actually super excited because you don't really get, not a lot of people get an opportunity to like record their life or maybe later on get a chance to look back on what they've done. So I'm really excited as to hopefully to use this as to see the growth and have a record of our journeys, and hopefully we all reach our summits. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm super excited.
it's kind of weird because all three of us, we don't come from like filming backgrounds or podcasting backgrounds or anything of the sort. Like we're all three of us are students, and this is our first time really entering into the space. And so it feels a lot weirder. Usually when you hear people talking, like YouTubers be like, "Oh, I'm talking to like a camera all day" and stuff like that. You never really experience what it's like, and I didn't think it would make too much of a difference, but it really does make a bit of a difference, hey? When you're talking and you're like, okay, somebody else is listening on the other end of the line, and I don't know who this person is, and you're trying to, say some stuff, but
Yeah, it's like we almost always are assuming that the people we're talking to know who we are, kind of know a
yeah,
bit about us at least, right? And it's with this,
yeah.
all the people listening don't know who we are at least right now. So with this one, we're at least hoping to at least break that barrier a bit, get you guys to get to know us, maybe so then at some point we can be a bit more comfortable in talking as if there's someone that knows us, so we don't have to assume this kind of empty background that we're trying to fill in with all this information.
Yeah, it almost seems like we're in an interview right now. Like we're
Yeah.
we're in a job interview and somebody's like, "Hey, tell me a little bit about yourself," and we're trying to like prove our self-worth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, well, do you want to lead off with kind of setting up what our goals of the podcast here? Kind of just let them know what
Yeah,
we're trying
yeah.
to get through, what we're trying to accomplish with this, kind of the format that we're trying to go with.
Yeah, the format's pretty simple. So, we're going to be uploading 3 days a week consistently for you guys. So, we're uploading Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Mondays are going to be meaningful Mondays. So, on these, our topics are always going to be related to finding meaning in some aspect of our lives. Uh, Wednesdays are going to be wildcard Wednesdays. So, these are just random topics, anything we find interesting, we bring it up, anything we learned, and sort of discuss the topic a little bit. And then Fridays are going to be Gratitude Friday. So just a topic about gratitude and gratefulness. We think that's something that's super important, especially when it seems like it's always negative outside and in the world around us. And so we're trying to flip that switch a little bit and bring in some positivity and some gratitude and gratefulness for what we already do have. So that's like the format of what our podcast is going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday consistently. How we're gonna try and do it is our approach. I think speaking for me personally, I can definitely speak for the other guys as well. Is that we're coming from a position of like being super naive and not knowing much, right? And all the things that we're standing here talking to you guys about are things that we're learning ourselves and we're experiencing ourselves. So we're trying to implement those same things in our lives, and hopefully there are some people out there that can relate to our experiences and see, like, the truth is we're not some, you know, really high up productive billionaires who are out there changing the world right now. Who knows, maybe one day we will be, but for the time being it's just a couple of us who are really going through this journey and trying to learn from our experiences, reflect on those experiences, and maybe make something meaningful out of it. So that's kind of where the name Blurred Summits came from. But let's Ahmad's been pretty quiet out here, so let's get him talking a little bit. What's your Ahmad? Let's know a little bit about your personality. Right now, everyone thinks you're an introvert. Let's hear it, man.
Yeah, dude. It's so weird. It's so weird talking to a camera, but yeah. Right now. I'm super excited because I just heard that I'm going back to school soon for my paramedic training, and a bunch of I know you guys are still stuck online, and
Yeah.
so right now that's kind of what I'm looking forward to in life. It's gonna be weird, man, because like campus, it's gonna be different. I go to a technical college because it's a technical skill, being a paramedic, and but I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know why they closed our classes in the first place. Like we're wearing masks all day, gloves, but I don't know. We'll see. But how about you guys? What's going on in your life?
Yeah, no, it seems like yours is way more interesting than us. We're
Yeah.
still we're still online for the next semester, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I guess we've adjusted for the most part now, even though it's not something that we particularly enjoy.
Yeah.
But
Hopefully.
so you're going back to school in when do you go back in person?
January 15th
Oh,
is
No
what they
kidding.
told me. Yeah,
That's
dude.
insane. You're going
Yeah.
on practicum this one, or are you still in school?
No, practicum starts September. So for this one, I'm still in school.
Yeah,
It's
that's
nice to just
insane.
be able to get back to some form of normalcy with things because it's been
Yeah, yeah,
out of whack for so long that
yeah,
you're almost forgetting what it's like to have things in person with people around you and things like that.
yeah. It's I don't know. Like I really like just miss my classmates, bro. Like just having the ability to just do stuff with people you don't know. Because like for us, like our program's like super hands-on. Like they'll show us a skill and they're like, okay, go do this, and they'll break us up into groups, and so you really get to know the people in your class, and um it's gonna be weird, it's gonna be different, but we'll see how it goes.
Oh, that's the killer part. I miss people, man. I miss
Yeah,
people. I'm telling you, even Zoom, like it doesn't even feel like I'm just talking to a camera and I'm talking to some guys that I know. It feels like I'm literally talking to nobody that I know, even though I've known you guys for years.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It's not the same. You cannot put a video camera, like video conferencing, video calls, like audio calls. None of that even compares to the in-person experience, you know? There's something about like human connection that
It's
you
even for
cannot
someone like
replace it.
me. Yeah. It was like I'm insanely introverted and don't really talk to many people, but there's something about seeing people, being around people. It's like they give off this kind of energy almost that it just you
Yeah.
need that around you. It's tough to explain, but there's something about it that it's just you can't make up online with things, right? Like I guess I'd see people at work, talk to people that way, but now there's nothing now that everything's shut down. It's just at home, talking to occasional people online, maybe grocery store, you see a couple people, but you don't really get much out of that. And it's something that's tough to match if you're online. Like you can't talk to random people sitting beside you in your lecture.
Yeah.
Can't talk to the person you're getting your food from because it's all this drop and go stuff. So it's, yeah, you're just missing all this personal connection nowadays. It's
And
tough to,
when you lose that, it's like when you lose that, you realize how like shallow almost the rest of the stuff is. Like you realize how much more shallow something like text messaging is, or like Snapchat is. It's that from before it almost felt like text message was similar to being in person. But now that we can't be in person, you realize, wow, that human connection is so much better. So much better than like anything that text messages can. So I hate it now. Like
yeah.
I hate text message now. My text game has gone to the ground. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just I hate it so much. I'm
Well,
like,
it's
don't text me. Don't text me. Don't Snapchat me. Don't do none of that. I don't want to talk to you over this. It feels so fake. Like it
yeah. Well, it's
feels
almost like
disingenuous almost.
text message and stuff was supplementary to in-person stuff. It was kind of just a thing on top, just to continue conversations you had in
Yeah.
person, kind of just to finish things off or tide things over until you see them. But then now it's like, oh shit, this is the only way I can talk to people now. This is the only way of communicating. And
Literally.
it really doesn't get there. It doesn't get the job done, which is too bad. And even like you said, over FaceTime and Zoom and stuff, it's tough to have conversations, especially when there's like a group of people on here. You can't have like those kind of side one-off conversations with people that you would in like a
Yeah.
normal group setting. So it's kind of like you're forced to have a big group conversation, which is unnatural to some degree. But I guess it's what we have to deal with for the time being. So it is
I
what it
think you
is at
got
this
it
point.
right on the spot there where it's like it's supplementary, right? The entire concept of all these things, even social media, was designed to be a supplementary tool. So when it has to become your primary thing, it sucks. It because it's not designed to do that. It was never
Yeah.
made to be your primary mode of communication, right? Just supposed to be something on the side, just something to make plans and keep in touch to some degree with people. But
Dude,
anyways,
but like one thing that's come out of this quarantine that, I never thought I'd do is like I really got into gaming like this quarantine. Because like, like you're missing like that, that social aspect. And like just being able to like just get on like, it's one thing to like call people, but like to be able to do something with them, like, Fortnite with the boys or whatever, right? So you just get on and like it's not it's not like you're actually doing something, but like it's pretty close, you know. And I think it's helped a lot of people this like quarantine, like with like feeling lonely and whatnot. Like if they have some friends that they can hop on with, I think that's been a huge factor.
I think that
yeah.
that side of things, it's almost more of a way to forget everything that's going on, more so than a proper form of communication. Like at least with me, it's something where you just kind of do it, so then you just kind of escape all the mess, all the stuff, because you're just loose, right? You're just hanging out with your friends, just having a good time. And that's, I guess, the
Listen,
closest thing to doing it. Then that's the closest thing to hanging out with them,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
though it's nowhere near it.
bro,
But
you
it
know what I heard? I heard on it must have been like Joe Rogan or something like that, but they were talking about so we have like all of our social medias, and I think one of the things that makes like video games more favorable, kind of like what I'm saying, is like you're doing something with the other people. It almost feels
Mhm.
like when you're that character in the video game, like that's who you are, and the other people there, it's like you're with them in person, sort of. And so they were talking about how far is it off until we have some like Ready Player One stuff, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like augmented reality or like virtual reality social media, where it's like a Facebook, but I just hop on, put my VR set on, and I go in and I can be like in person with you. And like we're sitting at a virtual couch together, just like talking, and like that becomes our world. You
Well,
know what I'm
doesn't that
saying?
already exist? I mean, it's not mass
Where?
produced, but it does already exist, bro. There's like all those VR chat room things and stuff
Ah, come
on
on.
those
Those
headsets.
No,
those
but like
suck.
Those are
that's not
Those
it.
basically, it's the
suck.
same idea, but I mean, and for that to be the case, then you need VR to be mass produced where it's in every household, right? Right now,
Right.
it's quite limiting because it has so much like you need an insane computer to run any good VR, so it's kind
Yeah.
of limiting in that aspect. But
Oculus is getting good though. Hey, Oculus is getting like almost there. Their like newest VR set, you don't even need the controllers, I heard. Like it has cameras on the outside of the thing, so if you just have your hands out in front of you, then it's like your hands in the VR. Like that's pretty close to the real
but
damn thing,
Dude,
bro.
but do you
it's like
still need a computer for them? Do you still need a
No,
computer
this
to
one
run
can
no.
it?
run independently, bro.
So it's like now it's turning into like the PlayStation one a bit, where it has its own system and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it's kind of
Okay.
crazy how like how cheap they've gotten like over the years. Like when they first came out, they were like upwards of like $1,000. But
Hmm.
like now you can get these systems for like 300, 400. Like they're like another PlayStation. Like obviously like the library of games isn't as big, but it's definitely headed there.
I
Yeah.
have played on it, I think, one time before. My issue is my it being so close to my eyes that it just makes me feel like motion sickness and stuff. Like I could do it for 40 minutes, And then the last 20 minutes, I was like, I can't do this. I'm gonna throw up. It made me my eyes just go haywire and stuff. But they can find a way where it's easier on the eyes. I think it would be ideal because it's basically you having a computer screen 2 inches from your eyeballs, just destroying your eyes, right? But
Yeah. No, it's once somebody comes out with a really good way to interact with people, like those VR chats really suck, you know what I'm saying? But if you look at something like from Ready Player One where they have the Oasis, you know what I'm saying? Have you guys ever seen that movie?
I haven't seen it.
You
I
I
haven't
think I
haven't
seen
read
seen
the
it?
it.
first couple pages of the
What?
book.
Oh my god. It's on Netflix. You guys need to see it. It used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore. You guys need to see it. It's sick. It's so cool. Like, and so there's this thing, it's called the Oasis, and it's basically like the virtual world. So you can go in and like play games or just like chill with people or like do whatever you want. But the entire premise of the movie is that, spoiler alert, is that you're everyone is living in this false reality, right? Everyone is in the Oasis. Like you could be broke in the real world and living in some dump, but in the Oasis you're whoever you want to be, and so people don't mind living in such terrible circumstances in the real world because it doesn't matter. I'll just hop into the Oasis and it's just amazing in there, right?
Do you think that's actually already happening in some aspect? Like the people kind of sacrificing their real life for kind of some in-game type stuff where they're like,
Yeah.
I definitely don't
Well,
care
100%.
how things are now, just so then I can be better off, successful in this virtual game.
that's the entire premise of social media, right? The entire premise of social media is like, okay, let's all live in a fake reality. Like everybody knows that Instagram isn't real, but if it makes you feel good, then you might as well live in something that is like false, right?
Well, I was thinking like more like video game style because I feel like Ready Player One
Oh,
almost had to have been them taking it off of something. Like in some games, people are just sacrificing all their stuff to play it like 12 hours a day.
and
Why?
that
Just
becomes
because
their
then
world. Like if
pretty much,
they
yeah.
if they lose that game, it's like they're losing their world. That was actually in Ready Player One too, where like people would like commit suicide or something like that if their avatar in the virtual game died because that was their world. You know what I'm saying? Like if they lost their money in the virtual world, it was the same thing as if they lost it in real life. You
Dude,
know?
and you see that today too, like the way like some of these big games like draw you in. Like for example, like Among Us, you can like pick it up and like play whenever. Like it's a small game, or like even Fall Guys, right? But the thing is, like with these like big games like Warzone or like Fortnite, like you have to put in your hours to like get good at the game. And like if you don't put on those hours, then like you're just gonna like people are gonna call you a bot, or like you just be horrible at the game. And so
Yeah.
when people put in all those hours, they don't want to leave that game because it's like, wow, I've put on all this time, right? And they don't want to move to a different game, because they're afraid of I'm gonna lose what I had, right? And so people get attached to their progress, I guess. And I think that's how like games really draw you in. Like I think that's why Fortnite's so big, or like Warzone. It's because people are scared of like losing all that time they put in, because then it would just be a waste.
But do you
Yeah.
think that them putting all the time into those games isn't more of a coping mechanism over anything? Coping mechanism to reduce for like all the stress in the real world, that type of stuff? Because
It could.
it's got to
I
be
think,
some form of an escape, right?
yeah, I definitely think maybe it starts as an escape because, like, for a lot of people, it's quarantine, right? Like, they had nothing to do, and so they started gaming or whatever, right? Or like they picked up something, or they were on Netflix or whatever. And I think it's just maybe that's how it starts, but then people just get addicted to the game because
Yeah.
like they've had to put in all this time,
It
and
becomes like a way of life. It just becomes
yeah,
a way of life for most. I remember when quarantine first started as well. Like I got back into gaming for a little bit too. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Just because there's nothing else to do, and it was like, okay, now what am I gonna do? And now I'm like winter breaks happening, and the New Year's, and we can't even do anything. So it's like, what am I gonna do? So I imagine a lot of people are going to hop back onto video games or Netflix or whatever. I know I've been doing a lot more Netflixing since school stopped as well,
Well,
right?
I haven't touched, I had it, or I guess past tense, hadn't touched my Xbox in 6 months. August last year, last time I played it, I put it away. And then just recently, I'm like, okay, now there's nothing to do. Finals are done. everything, pull it out, buy a new game.
Yeah.
Now just something to just pass the time, right? 'Cause I guess at
Yeah.
this point in time, there's literally nothing to do. So it's just a way to, I guess, accelerate time until school starts back up. At least for me, it's something just to pass the time until school starts, and then I'll put it all away and then just go back to focusing. But I don't know. It's just something
It's a
out
little
there.
bit weird. Yeah, I think it definitely starts as like extra thing, but once it develops into a way of life, I think it's not all negative too. A lot of people get a lot of positives out of video games. You know what I'm saying? Like you meet new people,
Hmm.
you can connect. Like I said, you can connect with friends that you wouldn't be able to connect with otherwise, right? Especially if it's quarantined. That's the closest thing you're gonna get. I would say video games is probably closer than like video calling, to be honest. Because when
Hmm.
you're in a video game, you're you have a direction together, right? You're on the same team. You're
Like
doing the same objective. It
like Among
feels like
Us, right?
exact like there's a
Hmm.
connection that even with a video call, like a video call almost feels like a fake substitute for real life connection versus video games is a whole different realm. It's we're going to be on the same team and we're going to achieve a similar objective, or we're going to be on opposite teams and it's a form of competition. It's essentially the same thing as sports, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, what are some goals that you guys have for yourselves, for the next little while? What are some goals physically, mentally, with school, with life? What are you
Iman,
guys
or
doing?
Imad, you want to go first here?
Kind of put me on the spot, but yeah, I know for since we're in lockdown, gyms are closed. I definitely want to get back in the gym. It's kind of crazy. Like you kind of take it for granted. Like when you have the gym, like the ability to go to the gym, and some days you'll put it off and you'll just go. You're like, oh, I'll just go later in like the evening or whatever, and then it just gets taken away from you. It's like, what the heck, like,
Yeah.
and then you're just stuck at home. But it's like sure you can do the at home workouts, but like they only go so far, right?
Yeah.
And it's way
Um,
less motivating.
yeah, man.
So much
Like,
less motivating.
It's because
and
you can't really separate yourself. Yeah, you can't separate yourself from the house, right? Like going to the gym, it's kind of like, okay, get out of the house, go do
uh,
something.
And
That's
everyone
all the
around you
same.
is working out, man. It's like everyone around you is hyped on some like creatine stuff and like everyone's trying to push their weights and ego lift. So it
Yeah.
kind of makes you want to push yourself a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
yeah, man. But yeah, and then other than the gym, super hyped to go back to school. And hopefully, I'm gonna try to get everything done by at least for this year. Try to get that done by April. And then hopefully maybe get some work experience this summer. But yeah, that's kind of the goal professionally and physically. And
So when you
yeah,
say get it done by April, does that mean
it's
that
like
you get to pick your own pace or?
no. So they have like I'm just hoping like we don't get shut down again and like
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Like so like we do have our set classes. And right now their best case scenario it's looking like we'll get done in April, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah. And then for emotionally like or like mentally just I want to start doing things where I don't like I finish it all the way. Like if I tell myself I'm gonna do something, and like let's say I'm gonna study for an hour, I'm gonna do the whole hour. I'm not gonna just have 5 minutes like give up and be like, oh, there's just 5 minutes left. I'm basically done anyways.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's kind of where I'm headed. How about you guys?
Yeah, I guess for me, we'll do that. So physically, again, probably same as you, the gym from home. Like I do have a spin bike right now, so I'm just trying to do that daily workout every day, pretty much just because there's nothing to do, right? So there's no excuse to not do something every day, even if it's like a recovery, just something just to get my heart rate up, get going that way. Mentally, do something that challenges me every day mentally. Like I like to play a lot of chess, so just doing that at least for maybe at least an hour a day, just something to keep my mind active, keep myself kind of going, challenging myself that way. So then it doesn't fall off too much on the mental side of things. Just something so then I'm tested, ready to go back when school gets going again. And yeah, I think those are mainly my two big goals as of right now. Just stay active and stay active both mentally, physically, doing things that challenge me every day, so I don't deteriorate down the line or anything in that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I'm trying to focus on as well with the whole challenging yourself. Just doing some tough things. I don't know. Maybe I think there is a one of my personal philosophies, and I don't even know if this is correct or not, but if you do hard things, then you just get better in realms more than just the hard thing. You know, like say for example, I'm working out and I haven't been working out from before, and that's something that's very difficult for me. I think I will grow in more aspects than just physically when I do that, you know? So I think my
Hmm.
goal, it's not even like anything in particular. It's just a matter of, okay, do difficult things, like whatever um, is challenging, to kind of try my best to do that, even if I can't do it initially, and just sticking with it. That's something that I'm trying to take into the new year, is just finding where the hard stuff is and then going in that direction. And hopefully, when I do that, I'll be able to get some lessons out of it beyond the difficult thing, you know, like, so
Yeah.
that's like the biggest goal for myself.
Well, it's like anything with all that data, like you said, the challenging stuff. At the worst case scenario, you're maintaining where you are. You're never going to lose something in any aspect, right? With any of that
Yeah.
challenging stuff, you're at worst case scenario, you're keeping the status quo. Best case scenario, you improve so that you're not losing anything by taking on any challenges whatsoever.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And staying consistent with it, I
Yeah,
think,
well, yeah,
are the real big things, you know?
because lots of
Uh,
people are scared to challenge themselves and push themselves because they're thinking, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to negatively impact me if I fail. But
Yeah,
what
and
happens if you
the
fail?
question is like, if you lose something in the process, then maybe it was worth losing that thing, or maybe that thing wasn't as good as you thought it was,
Mhm.
right? So if you do something challenging and you lose something, maybe you should have lost that thing. Maybe that thing that you had from before was like not a good thing to have, and you were just too much, like too scared to lose it, or too afraid to kind of cut it off. Maybe that's another thing I also want to improve on, is making tough decisions. I think that's
Mhm.
something that I particularly challenged in, is, cutting things off at the knee and not taking things, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
So
I
I
think yeah,
think
lots of
sometimes
people
I'll
have that issue.
stick with things a little bit too long, to where maybe it's just a weakness of willpower, to be honest, and just not making those tough calls, and then in the end, uh, it just ends up being way worse than it has to be.
Yeah, well, with that, at least for me, I'm sort of the same, but it's in my idea, it's almost keeping the status quo. Like it's more so just maintaining things the way it is, reduce the amount of change that happens. Because I guess sometimes I think change comes volatility. With volatility comes uncertainty, and then it becomes this whole mess. But sometimes there's signs where it's like, okay, I need to make this decision because it kind of has to be done, and then just kind of riding the wave and seeing where it goes. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
better to just cut it off and just go with it than for something to keep going and it just messes everything else up.
exactly. No, literally, I can recall a handful of times where I'm like, okay, this should change, and I just won't change it. I'll just stick to the status quo. And in the end, it ends up being way worse than it had to be if I just cut it off at the knees, right? Because if you get way too far into the deep end, then it's so much harder to pedal yourself back,
Hmm.
right? You sort of dig yourself a hole that's too big to climb out of, and you got to start building a damn ladder to just get out the hole. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you could have just jumped out at the very beginning. But yeah, that's something that I really, really want to focus on. I think I've been getting a little bit better. It's not as bad as it used to be. I'm getting better at just saying no initially, just like right off the bat. Don't even get myself involved. Um, but if that involvement begins, then it's just a huge waste of my time.
Well, I think it's easier now than before to cancel stuff out as well because I think
Yeah,
with it being online and not in
Yeah.
person, it's easier to say, "Hey, man, look, I this doesn't work," and then you can just cut it out and then kind of find other things or change it because there's not much going on.
yeah.
So by
Or the
you cutting
greatest
something
excuse of
out,
2020, it's quarantine, guys.
Yeah.
Can't do
Well,
it.
it's
It's
like,
quarantine. It's COVID. It's COVID, guys.
well, the
That's
nice thing
it.
is though,
It's
yeah,
like,
when you
what
do
are you
cut
talking
stuff out
about?
now,
That
it doesn't
excuse
really
is
change
so
much, right? Like,
overused, man. Everybody uses. I swear, the number of times I've heard people say, "It's COVID. It's quarantine." It's like, okay,
well, it's
it's
like if you
been
can't do it
quarantine for
now,
8 months, buddy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Do not be lying on my name right now. I
well, it's like
swear.
if you're not doing it now, you're never gonna do it, right? That's another
Yeah.
thing that I'm trying to look at in this. It's everything's
Yeah.
basically at a standstill. You're never gonna be as free as we are now. You don't have to
Yeah.
transport anywhere. You don't have to do any of this other stuff. So it's like,
I think if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it, right?
yeah.
Like that's something that we were planning on starting this podcast in the new year, and we get hit with these new wave of restrictions. So our first couple podcasts, unfortunately, have to be in this Zoom format instead of in person, which really really sucks. You know, I want it to be in person, but are we just gonna keep procrastinating it until we have the perfect time? You know, something else is gonna pop up in a couple of weeks when the restrictions get alleviated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something else is gonna come up. So it's just a matter of like, if a person wants to, they're gonna find a way to do it, and if a person doesn't want to, then they're just gonna come up with an excuse to not do it. You know, you
It's
got
all
the
Yeah.
about
best excuse in
value,
the
right?
world, right?
Like
Oh
it's all
yeah.
about value, right? Like if you value something enough, then you'll do it, right? Like if you
Mm-hmm.
value waking up and going to the gym, then you'll do that, right? And so like I think that's just something that we need to get better at is valuing different things. And like picking the things that are like being destructive in our lives, or like maybe not so much destructive, or you could be doing better things with that time, and then maybe putting that value somewhere else.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
same with like friends and stuff right now too. Like now, or even in the past, I guess it's if you're not willing to make time to even hang up, do a Zoom call, even though it obviously doesn't do the same thing. Not making time to do something just to talk to them, just keep connected to them, right? Then when are you going to hang out with these people? Like
Yeah.
it's like when everything's at a standstill, that is when you should be able to talk to people the most because no one has anything to keep them busy, right?
Dude, it's so
Yeah.
crazy. Like after high school, I realized how hard it was to keep up relationships, like or like friendships. Cause like when you're in high school, you're all together. You're gonna see
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna see each other anyways. But then as soon as you're out of there, like even in uni, like sure you have some classes together. Maybe that's if you're lucky, right? Maybe in the same program, but other than that, like you actually have to make time for people rather than in
And
high
an
school you're with
effort. You
people.
have to put
Mm-hmm.
a lot of
Yeah,
effort to maintain those relationships. If
yeah,
you don't, they'll dwindle away.
Well, the thing, yeah, with the effort, it goes both ways, right? It can't just be one person trying to connect with the
hundred
other
percent,
person,
hundred
say, hey, we'll
percent.
try and force something, do this, do that. Both people have to make that conscious effort to
Yeah.
hang out, both put in the effort to say, hey, let's hang out and not just be one-sided, hey, let's go do something. The other person's like, sure. They both need to be the one coming up with the putting in the initiative to go hang out or it'll
Yeah, because
dissolve and just be worthless.
eventually the person's gonna get sick and tired of it, right?
Yeah.
Like that might be the case where one person's always initiating things, always trying to uphold the friendship, etc., etc. But if they're the only one that's always doing it, the other person's eventually gonna get sick of it, right? Like a person can
Mm-hmm.
only, stick up with, or what am I trying to say? Like they're trying to stick. I don't know,
Put up.
whatever. They're
Yeah, put
put
up.
up. There it is. Well, I don't know why I couldn't think of it. They can only put up with this stuff for so long. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Eventually the person's gonna be like, okay, you know what? This is way too much effort. I am not getting, like a return on my investment,
Yeah.
right? So it definitely has to be a two-way relationship, and you got to put in a lot of effort. So it's just a matter of, okay, where are you going to put in that effort? I think after high school too is you start to differentiate who you want to be friends with and who you're fine with just being acquaintances with, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't be friends with everyone. If you have to put in that much effort to maintain relationships, you can only maintain a handful of relationships really,
Mm-hmm.
really well. So then you kind of got to be like, okay, I would love to be friends with everyone, but I just can't, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate, but that's just the reality of how life is.
Well, yeah, let's wrap up this little teaser podcast here. Kind of went over what we wanted to talk about, what we're planning to do with the podcast here. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it here. Next podcast will be coming out on Wednesday. What are we talking about on Wednesday, Abdul?
Wednesday, Wildcard Wednesday, we are going with habits. So hopefully you guys can tune into that podcast. Hopefully you guys got to learn a little bit more about us in this podcast. and get an idea of who we are as individuals. Hopefully, you
If you're
guys stick with
watching
us.
this, if you're watching this on YouTube, we're out on all streaming platforms. You can go listen to it that way on your commutes if you have commutes. If you're listening to this on Spotify, YouTube version will be coming out every Sunday.
Be sure to
And
follow us on Instagram and TikTok for daily content.
we got
You
some
guys don't want
Twitter,
to hear us talk
Facebook.
for 40 minutes.
Hopefully, yeah, we'll put the interesting stuff, like kind of the highlights, the lowlights, whatever we find kind of interesting tidbits, they'll be going up there. So you can catch the best parts of the podcast without having to listen to us talk for 40 minutes about all this stuff just there. You guys, see you next time.